The following program has been rated GE by the Kenya Film Classification Board. It is therefore suitable for general family viewing.
Hello viewer, welcome to our today's episode on Chungu cha Jamii. I'm your host Kate Oliaro and I'm inviting you to converse with us. We are having a topic on dealing with depression. So you're most welcome to converse with us and talk to us. And you're most welcome in our SMS line 21144 and in all our social media handles at GBS TV Africa. So with me, I'm not alone. I have someone who will be helping us navigate this topic on depression. I have a very brilliant young man with me and he's going to introduce himself to us. So you're most welcome.
Thank you so much, Kate.
Yeah.
My name is Wickliffe. I am a psychologist and counselor. Currently, or you can find me on social media, Wellness with Wiki. And yes, I'm just glad to be here to talk about depression and basically help everyone around get to know what this thing is and how they can, help themselves.
Okay.
Yes.
You're most welcome.
Thank you so much.
Now, many people are not even aware that they have depression or even what it is all about. So I know with you, being a psychologist, with all the information that you have, you're going to help us, dissect this whole thing.
Yeah.
And at the end of the time, we are going to understand what exactly depression is.
Yeah.
And you're also going to help us understand how we can get help and where we can get help. Yeah, so what exactly is depression?
So I'll just explain it in layman's language. Depression is prolonged sadness, which is marked by periods of loss of interest in things that you previously enjoyed doing. So it is marked by withdrawal, so you find no happiness, no joy, you're not enjoying anything that gives you joy, would give you joy maybe previously or in the past. There is a tendency of also withdrawal. So you find people who are depressed tend to want to be themselves, they tend to self-isolate, and they also, it's a period where people tend to be generally moody. Moody meaning they are very easily irritable. So when a guy is, maybe a guy or a lady, even in children, they tend to be aggressive. Maybe they tend to basically just want to be alone. So when you're trying to interact with this person, they'll be aggressive. They would then after being aggressive, throwing a tantrum, then draw back into their shells. So I use the analogy of it's like a deep dark hole, and there is generally helplessness. A person feels very helpless, feels very hopeless too. So you feel like there is no way you can, generally life has no meaning in this point. So when you hear someone saying life doesn't look like it has meaning, that is one marker that this person could be depressed.
And when you talk of prolonged sadness, at the time when someone has lost a loved one, sometimes it's not, you cannot get over this person in 1 week or two. So naturally, someone will go through prolonged sadness. Now, is that part of depression?
So there is a difference between grief and depression. So, and one of the biggest highlighter of the difference is, so for a person who has lost someone, that is a person who is going through grief, they will tend to, in as much as they want to be alone, they will still find joy in being around people. But so for a person who is depressed, they just want to be left alone. They don't want anyone.
So and in grief, someone is consolable in some sort of way.
Yeah, and when they are around people, they tend to feel better.
True.
And also another very major difference in understanding the difference is when a person is grieving, they will still find joy in the things maybe they used to do. So you find when you're trying to console someone, you can go help them do things you enjoy doing, kitambo, even as friends, So you basically can help them get out of the shell of grief. So they enjoy. So if a person was previously very interactive, being around friends will help. But for depression, there is complete loss of interest in all this.
Nothing that will make them any happy.
Not happiness, completely lost.
Okay. Oh, thinking of the current situations around, let me say, our society today, the Kenyan society.
Yeah.
And when you look around, there are so many things that are happening that we could say they are wrong patterns. They are not normal.
Yeah.
There are people who will kill themselves,
Yeah.
others will kill others,
Yeah.
or will cause grievous harm
Yeah.
to their loved ones or even other people. And when I think of such things happening, sometimes they are not foreseen.
Yeah.
So depression inaweza jificha.
Yes and no. Yes, because sometimes we do not note. Because for instance, when you with people and someone will tend to isolate. So we tend to, assume a person wants time alone, and normally people want time by themselves. So when a person basically just withdraws, you basically have no contact. So utapata it's easy for them to hide, depression to hide, because this person, you're not in contact with them. So utapata if it's someone who was going to work, they tend to maybe be absent most of the time. So it's not easy for you to know unless actually you're interested and you're very observant.
Or maybe you're with this person each and every single time. You can learn, you can see their patterns changing.
Yeah.
Because we are waking to people having committed suicide.
Yeah.
And you didn't see that coming.
Yes.
That's why I wanted to know if I'm not in contact with someone, so there's no way I can know.
Yeah.
Only the people around mostly who will know.
Yeah.
Or even you'll find people left suicide notes.
Yeah.
Or weird posts
Yeah.
on social media.
Yeah.
And most of the time we ignore these things, but these are signs.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yes.
So if at all someone cannot know, now like someone being away, someone who is not in contact, what are the symptoms that can make people realize that actually someone is going through depression, or I am going through depression?
So I think you pointed out something very interesting. With the current trends, especially social media, people find it's easy to hide, by the way, especially with social media, because I only have to fake a smile for a photo, and then I can smile, and everything is okay. And people will do this sometimes seeking validation, but a marker for a person who is depressed is, especially with social media, following the trends that have been, you find them, they tend to post very disturbing things. So for a person maybe who was not aggressive, they tend to have, and you have to be very observant to be able to note the changes. So a person not aggressive, someone, and then they start posting very aggressive posts. They start, you see them losing meaning, even in the post. So they are popular memes, we think of them as memes, and there are very many depression memes, by the way, if you note. So sipangwingwi, kila mtu na maisha yake. So those are very subtle signs, subtle because you do not think of them as being a big thing.
And
but
this is mostly for the younger generation, because they are used to social media and everything else.
Yes.
But now what of the older generation? How would you point out that this person is going through a rough patch or maybe a depression?
So I'll give the most common example. So for the most common thing that happens is social withdrawal. So if a person maybe had, for the people who go for chamas, unapata, ana quit chama, and they will look for reasons, by the way. And someone did something. For the men, most of the time is they tend to be going to spaces maybe where men interact, the man caves and all that. So unapata, they tend to withdraw, and they will mostly have reasons. And for people in their lives, they will think maybe it's because of the reasons, but now there are other indicators, like people tend to sleep excessively. They will tend to want to be quiet, just quiet, especially if you're around someone and normally they are not that quiet. And then unawapata, they just want to be by themselves, very quiet. They tend to sleeping patterns, but it's a big indicator. Your person oversleeps or undersleeps, but it's also part of it. So it's either over or under. The eating patterns, if you note, maybe they're eating less or eating more. So when you note these things and it's not normal, because there is a normal from what you've observed from people, then they could be indicators of this person might be falling in depression. It's easier to note, especially if you're close to a person, because these people look for help. They engage in what we call self-help seeking behaviors. You know, I will want to talk about something, but most of the time we tend to shut them down. You know, niko na stress. And you know, when someone says they wako na stress, ujue imekuwa overwhelming to the bit, especially for the men and the older men, you know, our dads, the elder generation, so to say. When someone says niko na stress, and then, you know, no one seems to maybe care, you tend wanna shut down completely. So they will come. Aggression, by that, very key indicator. Aggression. Someone, you know, for a mom, a dad, you know, an older person, even younger people, they will tend to be very aggressive when questioned, when maybe wanna, you know, for instance, I'll give an example of a father comes home, and then, you know, the kids want to interact with them, but tunapata wako very aggressive. So tokeni hapa, you know. So it's easy to note, but now people have to be very observant, because sometimes it might not be depression,
it's just
but
a mood change.
Yeah, it's slight mood change. Maybe someone alimkasirisha somewhere, but if it is persistent over time, and for depression we give it a period of 2 weeks minimum. So 2 weeks, and so 2 weeks, you know, this thing is continuing over time. Then this is an indicator this person actually needs help.
Because for 2 weeks you cannot be sad throughout, and there's no a chance of joy or being happy here and there.
Exactly.
So I'm thinking, when you talk of the symptoms, sometimes someone is screaming for help, but then they are not even able to maybe like even be physical, and especially in the case of children, because I understand even children go through depression, maybe through the things maybe they are taken through by their teachers, or they are being bullied at school. And a child, you know, maybe sometimes they are not able to speak their heart out. So how will you even pick from a child? When a child is brought to you, how will you know that they are depressed?
So for children, depression is basically, to understand depression in kids, you have to be a very observant person. So for the caregivers, for the people maybe with the kids around, so you have to first understand what we call the baseline behavior. So mtoto akiwa normal, how is he? Because
so you have to understand their eating patterns, their sleeping patterns.
Exactly.
And nightmares, vitu kaa hizo.
So if it's a kid maybe who they are not very extremely social, you know, people who tend, because there are some things, the personalities too. So kuna hiyo baseline tunasema anakuanga hivi, you know, maybe ni mtu atacheza for some time, and then they will need energy to go sit down and be by themselves for some time. But so ukipata there is now the changes in behavior, and now that is where we call for very observation, especially for parents, for caregivers with kids. You have to be very observant, and again ask, because most of the time kids will say things, you know, mtoto has been bullied maybe in school, and now that environment is a consistent one, especially for maybe school or maybe at home with the other kids, maybe in the cases of even in families, because even children will go to school and cry for help, maybe because their family environment is not conducive. So they will cry for help, they just ask, and children are very good at saying things, but they are not good at articulating it. Well, you know, and again, another thing we observe in kids is play. When kids are playing and they, you know the games like Kalongo, they model what they go through. So if now a person is very observant, you can be able to pick what this kid is actually going through. One, and you stress. And kids are really good at, you know, because kids model. Wanaona kenye inasemo, they actually say it. And they will say it sometimes maybe in the playing bit, but also sometimes it means something. So for a parent, you have to be very sensitive. If it's a kid mwenye aliangi as much, then all of a sudden every day anakuja crying.
Doesn't want to go to school.
Exactly.
Or doesn't want even to go home.
Or in school doesn't want to go home, at home doesn't want to go to school. As a parent, as a caregiver, you need to be very sensitive and ask what could be really going on, and actually investigate without putting the kid on the spotlight, because, you know, parents sometimes what we want, answers from the kids, and they don't know how now to articulate. It's because a kid will say they are going through something, but they won't know how to, explain it. Maybe I feel sad, I feel happy. They won't articulate it as much, but you can tell.
Okay.
So it calls now for observation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for us for anyone to realize that they have maybe an issue that could be depression, we said number one, it has to be prolonged over 2 weeks.
Over 2 weeks. 2 weeks is a minimum, because
Minimum 2 weeks.
a minimum of 2 weeks. Yeah.
And then we can only also realize from the change in our behavior patterns.
Yeah, the change in behavior patterns.
More on the aggressive bit, or someone now is overly quiet.
Yeah. So yeah, from the baseline, if a person is normally quiet, it will not be depressed. Maybe life. And saying this because we experience different moods at different parts of the day. We experience different feelings. So when now your sadness, because sadness has cure. I normally think of it as a period, and then when you get something to
to
revamp,
your mood.
you can lighten up your mood easily. But now when the things that you actually do to lighten up your mood don't work, then it calls for introspection. So what actually is going on? Yeah. So yeah, that is really telltale. And the sleeping patterns. By that, I'm very big on the sleeping and eating patterns, because these are the things we do not really think about deeply, especially with ourselves and also with the people around us. So if someone used to eat and then they're no longer eating as much, could be something. So it's good to follow up, see what is maybe going on with these people. Yeah.
Okay. So even our sleeping patterns.
Yes.
They are a major pointer that there could be something.
When you're stressed, for instance, most people will tend to oversleep or undersleep. So depending on the type of person, there are people who quote unquote obsess about the issues they are going through. So these people won't sleep. There are people who will want not to think about them completely, so they will tend to oversleep. So, and then now if it happens over time, this stress has become uncontrollable. So this could be now leading this person to depression. Yeah.
So I'm very glad that our viewer can now be able to think about their own patterns, think about your loved ones' patterns, whether they are overdoing things or slowing down on them.
Yeah.
And you can even pick whether this thing is normal or abnormal. And this way you can be able to start assessing whether this person is going through a rough patch or even this depression that you can, dig deeper. So I wish we take a breather and then we come back and even think of when someone is alone, they don't have a loved one or anyone who can tell that their behaviors are digressing. So when you come back, he'll teach us and take us through this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everywhere, GBS.
Welcome back, viewer. Before we went on the short break, we wanted to understand also how, if I live alone, I don't have any loved ones who will tell my behaviors are changing. How do I become aware of the issues that I'm going through?
We live in a very interactive environment, so it's literally impossible actually to be very alone, because in as much as maybe a person lives alone, you tend to work where you work.
Sure.
Some people maybe don't have neighbors, yes, but I think generally the loss of interest in wanting to be around people, be it your friends, be it family, even the need to disconnect, especially when people, delete their social media handles, when a person maybe can't be reached even on phone. I think that for other people should be an indicator that this person is not okay. But for an individual now, you have to be very self-aware.
Yeah.
So you really need to be at a point where I understand as a person, enyewe, there's something actually not okay with me. And
there's these and these that I'm disinterested in.
Yeah.
So you should be aware.
Exactly.
Of what has changed.
Yes. Most of the time, because depression, most of the time comes from somewhere. It does not just pop up and you wake up one day and you're depressed. That is why we give it a period of 2 weeks, because normally in our day-to-day lives we go through sadness, happiness, anger, joy. These are feelings, we feel them.
Yeah.
But now when it's consistent that you're experiencing sadness over a period of time, it's easy even for you as a person to actually tell. Because you'll realize, nilikuwa napenda kukutana na mabeshte zangu, but I just don't want to be around. Maybe if I'm a person who maybe was on calls, on Zoom calls, meetings and all that, like I just don't want to be around these people. So it is a really good indicator. And that now calls for awareness for the person, the individual, you as a person. Am I really aware of what is going on with me? Am I really aware that, I am actually stressed? I am actually going through a rough patch, maybe this and this is causing me to feel in a certain way. So that is an indicator. And people should basically just get to understand how they go through their day-to-day lives, awareness. Like we're sitting here and you need to be really aware, how am I actually feeling? Am I feeling comfortable? Am I feeling, calm, collected? Am I feeling a bit anxious? So that awareness really helps when now you're going through a rough patch. You can be able actually now to seek help or find ways of navigating through that period.
So if I'm getting this right, you're saying that we should be aware of our patterns.
Yes.
Our normal patterns.
Yeah.
And if they are changing.
Yes.
What are the emotions that are attached to the, if I don't want to see my friends, is it that because I'm changing for a good cause, or I'm just feeling disinterested and I'm attaching, bad and negative emotions towards this?
Yes.
So if this is true, then you have to,
find a way, seek help if need be.
Okay.
But there is more than one way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now that we've talked of the, the various ways that you can realize that someone is going through depression.
Yeah.
So what exactly causes depression?
So that's a very interesting question, and I think it's one that has tried to be answered more. And I think depression and mental health issues came to, at the forefront, especially recently because of COVID-19. So, what happened with COVID? COVID came, people had to be isolated, people lost jobs, people, you used to this environment, so there was drastic change. So these are just pointers, and people now started falling into depression, if I may say, falling into, because it's two-way. So there's the genetic bit, where who we are as individuals, our personality types. So there are people who tend to be more easily, it's easy for them to fall into depression compared to others. So
what do you mean of the genetic makeup of a person?
Yes, the genes. So
the person who I am.
Yeah, who you are as a person predisposes you. So predisposing doesn't mean you're actually depressed, but it's easy for you to get depressed.
Okay, let me get to understand this.
Okay.
Does it mean that depression can come from how God created me?
Yes and no. Let me break it down.
When you talk of the genetic makeup, it means that this is not something that I have control over.
Okay, I'll explain it in this way. So for people who have a genetic predisposition, genetic predisposition does not predispose you to depression. Depression now being a mental health disorder, which I think we should clarify. It basically means the way I am wired as a person now is who I am. That includes my personality type and temperaments. It's easy for me. So there are 4 temperaments, just to break down in a nutshell. So there's sanguine, there's a choleric, there's phlegmatic, and then there's the melancholic. So people with the melancholic tendency easily get depressed compared to. But it's a combination of both now, my genetic makeup and now the environmental factors. So the environmental factors being now the daily stresses. So when I say the genetic makeup, so for a melancholic person, these are people who tend to be perfectionists. So that is a personality type. So for people who tend to be perfectionists, tend to be normally just, they tend to like being by themselves. They tend to like being quiet. So unapata when now this person is going through maybe a rough patch, now this is the environmental factor. So I am going through a rough patch, and normally as a person I don't really know how to talk about what I'm going through. I don't know how to express myself. So it's easier now for me to fall into depression, because now as a person, normally, my normal is I don't really talk as much, you know, I am not really expressive as much. I am a person who loves perfection, and loving perfection means because the world and things don't really go a lot of times my way. So I'll tend to be more stressed compared to a person maybe who is a sanguine. Sanguines are people who are talkative, who tend to be generally very energetic, vibrant. They tend to be very ignorant, so to say. So for a sanguine, it's very, compared to a melancholic, we do comparison, they will tend to not easily fall into depression. It's a possibility, but not as easily as a melancholic, because this person, when they're going through something, they express it easily, you know. And when they express it, it's easier for them to find solution. When this person with this now temperament is going through, they are not perfectionists. They're people who are pleasure seeking. So if maybe I feel sad, I am quick now to know, I'm feeling sad, let me call someone, let me go do out something, you know. So for them it will be easier not to fall into depression compared to, that is now what I mean.
I'm getting two types of causes from all these.
Yeah.
There is a genetic bit of it,
Yeah.
and there is a personality type. The personality type, from my understanding, being, you know, I also am, or anyone becomes a what do I say? Becomes a product of how they were socialized. And
also their genes.
Exactly. Yeah. But there's also the person who becomes a person from how they were socialized.
True.
So someone, maybe there's a genetic bit of it, because I think if my family lineage,
yes, that is also a factor.
People who are overly depressed, you know, and these tendencies.
Yes. Yes. So if your family lineage has people who have had mental health conditions,
so now there is up to that.
Yeah.
And now that my family line has these people who are naturally depressed, but my personality type does not allow me to be depressed.
Okay.
And another person is predisposed or subjected to the gene of depressed persons.
There is a gene. So the genetic makeup is now our family lineage. We, you know, the DNA, our DNA. So there are aspects in our DNA, in some people's DNA, that predispose them to mental health conditions. I'll say mental health conditions generally, because it's not only for depression. And by depression, we mean depressive disorders, because normally every person experiences sadness.
So in layman's language, from where we are coming from, from our ancestors and from our, you know, generations, they can push us to being people who are prone to depression. Yes,
prone to, meaning you don't have to be depressed, but it's easier. It's easier for you to get depressed.
That's sad.
Yeah, not necessarily sad, because when I am aware.
Because this is not something I'm choosing.
So what is, the trick is, it's not just one, it's a combination of both. Now the genetic makeup, that is what psychologists call the nature versus nurture. So there is your environment, and there is now the who you are as a person.
Nurture.
And nurture now is, you know, nature is, you know, me, myself, and now nurture is my environment, how I've been nurtured, how I've grown up. So, my genetic makeup now, when inakuwa met with the environmental factors, so as I explained, using the temperament bits, because these are the things we inherit, and it's now how we know. Because, for instance, there are people who, you know, will tend to have these personality traits because of the genes, and of course now with a combination of the environment.
Of the nature of how you're nurtured.
Yeah, of how you're nurtured now. So when now the two come into play, now the two factors in a kuweka position too. So I'll speak about the environmental factors. So there is stress, and stress comes from very many places. So stress is a very broad topic, because people are stressed. First of all, there is normal stress, especially, everyone gets stressed. So for instance, you waking up in the morning choosing what you will wear, it was some bit of stress, because you have something to choose for if you're not a person who plans. So it's normal stress because you can handle it. So, you know, you pick, you wear, you move on. But now, when we go through stress, and I'll use now the example of what happened last year, when people had been working. So there were many cases you'd see a person had been working for almost 10 years and then they lose their job and they did not have any other source of income, and now it wasn't easy now getting other jobs. So this is stress, but it is now becomes prolonged stress because I don't have a solution to it. So predisposes someone to depression.
So from now, what I get from all this, I want to also help the viewer understand this. We've talked of the nature of our environment. There's also the nature of our genetic makeup. That also pushes us to be prone to depression. There's also, you know, the life as it is. It has a lot of stressors like the COVID-19 pandemic and many other stresses that we go through. So if one is not able to overcome, could be pushed to, you know, being depressed. Now, as our viewer digests all this, did I get it right?
You got it right, but there are also other factors. Maybe I can mention. So there is up to 6 types of depression.
Okay, so allow us to, when we come back, to look at the different types. So for now, let's digest on the different causes
of depression.
So let's take a breather for a minute as we digest all this. And if you have any questions, kindly send them our way on our SMS line 21144.
Everywhere, GBS.
Welcome back. As we continue with our conversation, we've just looked at the different symptoms and the causes. So now we are going to look at the different types of depression. So which are these?
We, as psychologists, people in the practice, we categorize it in 6 broad types.
Give us the common ones.
So the common ones are the major depressive disorder. So for depression, because everyone gets stressed, I think this is a very nice way of categorizing it. When you go to a psychologist, first of all, they will assess your level. How deep are you into this hole we call depression? So we use different testing measures, and now it is that which determines whether you need medication alongside counseling, or you actually just with a bit of counseling can help you navigate that period in time. So there is one which I think is very important to mention, the premenstrual depressive disorder. It happens normally,
before our periods?
There is that one. It's, you know, it happens, and then there is one which happens post-maternal, the one where after postpartum depression. It's a common thing that has been happening. It is not normally talked about because
but it's common,
it's very common nowadays. And there is now generally depression in children, which we call, and then there's the depression in adults, and then there's prolonged depression, which we call severe depression, which has maybe you've been depressed for more than a year or 2 years. So all these types, and basically now the difference is how long and the causes. These are what informs these differences.
So basically you said there's also the form of intensity, the maternal or postpartum depression. Depression in children. And also the one that you talked of, prolonged.
Prolonged.
So all this also comes, and the treatment comes because of the difference in intensity. So that's when you will realize, you will know whether to give medication or just counseling.
Because we said normally depression is just a period. When you're able to navigate it, there is now the levels determine the type of treatment you will get.
So depression is not a lifelong sentence. It's just a period that you will be helped to overcome, maybe.
Yes, there is. I'm a believer that there is nothing that is permanent in this life. So if it's an issue you're going through, it's something that can be solved with the right help, of course.
And there's nothing new.
There is nothing new under the sun, of course, yes. So, understanding the different types. Sometimes you will need now to seek a professional help, just know where you are. And now the professional, be it the psychologist, the psychiatrist, can be able to help you put into perspective what is needed and how you can be able to navigate through it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for someone who have realized that maybe I could be in the direction of getting depressed, or my persons or my children or my partner or a colleague is going through this, or maybe generally we have learned a lot today. So, and we have also learned that there is a different intensities. Intensity of depression. So mtu anaweza kuwa level 1 ndo anaingia. Mwingine yako katikati, mwingine yako kule mwisho. So for this person who is maybe ndo anaingia, ako njiani, anaelekea depression. How can you help? Okay, what are the tips that they can live by to help them not to get to severe depression?
So the first and most key thing which you mentioned is awareness. Just being at a place where you understand yourself, you understand your environment, what are my triggers, what makes me tick, you know, what is causing me to go through maybe stress. And most of the time, when you figure that out, dealing with that, because most of the time we don't even deal with actual depression, we deal with what is the cause. So understanding that. So if I am a person, for instance, I'm going through a rough patch because I lost my job. So, and I'm not finding solutions. How do I actually go about it? How do I actually maintain my quality of life? And it's as simple as talking to your friend. For people who are not able to talk, like the men really find it hard talking about what they are going through. But there are ways, you know, we say men cry, but men don't cry in the way Africa, we understand. They don't cry like shedding tears, but they express their feelings in other ways. So finding healthier ways of expressing these intense feelings we're going through, and now are looking for solutions. What could be causing the depression? So that is one of the many ways we can be able to basically just contain and manage our feelings, because when because we said it's sadness, when we are just unable to manage the sadness, when we're able to process the sadness, then we fall into, you know, that deep dark hole. So it's basically finding things that give you meaning, which is very important, because we said it is marked by a lot of hopelessness and helplessness. And basically being kind to ourselves. I think that is one thing we do not really emphasize. You know, we are too hard on ourselves, and someone said a person is their own worst critic. So when you make a mistake, acknowledge you've made a mistake, and it's okay. And it's okay when you're going through a rough patch. It's okay to be sad, and most of importantly, it's okay to ask for help when you're not able to know how to get yourself out of that deep dark hole that is called depression.
So generally people should be self-aware to realize who they are, what works for them, what triggers them. And I also think it's very important for people to keep, you know, a social network that is positive.
Exactly, the people you surround with, the things you enjoy doing, what do I actually feed myself, because even social media is a cause of depression, because we are in constant comparison. So feed yourself
with
the right things, you know, be around the right people. When you need help, ask for help, and be very kind to yourself, and very, very, very introspective.
Actually, that's key, because many people only know how to tell other people sorry. Only know how to embrace other people, but they have never known how to embrace themselves and to love themselves. So I think that will be key in helping people not to get depressed.
I think the key is being your own best friend. I normally tell the people I'm around, are you first of all your best friend? Because, you know, you want your friends. So the things you normally say to your friends, tell yourself that.
That is profound.
The type of, you know, help you'd want from your friends, give yourself that. The love you express to the people around you, your family, your friends, give yourself that. The kindness, the patience, because we're not patient with ourselves, but you find you're very good at, you know, acknowledging others, expressing gratitude when others do something right. So you be a best friend to yourself, so that when you're even going through that rough patch, you know, when you can sit down with a person who you're very open with. So being open with yourself. So, you know, like Wickliffe, what is really happening? What is going on, you know? So as you can be with a friend, as a good friend, not just a friend, but your good and best friend, be that to yourself. And it makes life generally very easy.
I'm seeing, the reason is why I'm smiling. I'm thinking of this, the starting point of a person to even to this journey of being a self-best friend.
Yeah.
How you talk to yourself.
Yes.
How do you talk to yourself?
It's very
now,
key.
is that how you talk to yourself? Can that person be your best friend?
Exactly.
So if I don't give myself a nice, a positive talk, I am always critiquing myself,
Yeah.
I'm always beating myself down, then that means I'm being my worst enemy.
Exactly.
Instead of being my worst friend. So I think, viewer, you can start from there where you ask yourself,
Yeah.
am I
My
talking
best
myself
Yes.
the right way? Am I
Yeah.
my best friend or my worst enemy?
Yeah, am I taking good care of yourself? You know, the way, for instance, most people tend to beat themselves down, especially when you're going through that thing we call depression. And depression, again, has to be diagnosed. So,
Okay.
when I've been diagnosed with depression, am I actually beating myself down? Am I, you're worthless, you
Okay.
can't do this.
Okay.
So am I taking good care of am I showering? Because, when you're going through, for people who have gone through depression, they will attest that even getting out of bed to take a shower in the morning
I'm
is
thinking
hard.
now, because of time,
Yes.
tell us how, give us your parting shot, yeah?
Yeah.
And also tell us how can someone get help, and even how can they find you to, maybe start on a journey of healing.
Okay, the journey of healing, as we've said, starts from a point of recognition, understanding that I might not be okay, and also recognizing that it's okay not to be okay. So from this point, you're able now to start the journey, because you cannot treat something you don't know.
Sure.
So go to we have a lot of resources, by the way. We have Google, the internet. Go, and then after you've gone, don't self-medicate, because we tend to have a tendency of self-medication. Don't self-medicate. Seek help. Talk to a friend. If now your friends can't help, seek professional help. And we have very many, as at now, we have very many places where you can get free counseling, especially for people under 25 in Kenyatta. Is free. Kenyatta National Hospital. It's subsidized in hospitals like Mathare and government hospitals, basically level 5 hospitals and level 4s, I'm aware. And also, if you now need advanced help, you can look for a therapist. You can find me on my social media at Wickliffe Italy on Twitter, at Wickliffe Italy on Instagram, at wellnesswithwiki at gmail.com in case of any queries or to book appointments. So basically, be your friend, be kind to yourself, and take care of yourself. Your self-care is key. So if you're able to take good care of yourself, we can be able to avoid all these mental health issues that we are going through at this time. And check on your friends, very importantly, by the way, check on your friends. Want to know how someone is doing, someone who you haven't talked to in a while, and it helps. It helps very much when someone knows you care, and it gives even a person hope. Yes, thank you.
You're most welcome, and you're very thankful for honoring us and allowing our viewer to learn a lot more on depression. And viewer, I'm also very grateful for you to have listened to us this far. I'm sure you've taken much, as I have taken. I've realized the different causes of depression, that it is part of who we are, and it is, how we have been nurtured, the nature into which we have been born into, and our life in general. We can only be predisposed to being depressed. So instead of getting there, I'm sure you've listened to all these things. You can be self-aware, as how Wickliffe has told us, that we be self-aware. Realize your patterns. Realize when they are getting off track. Be keen with your loved ones, and know when they are getting off track, and you can be in a position to help them live a happy life, a fulfilled life, and even yourself to live a happy life and fulfilled life. So I've listened to so many things today, that we have to be our own best friends. When you are your own best friend, then you can be in a position to keep away depression. Whatever you consume also, as you have been taught, is also very important. The content that you listen to on social media, the people that you keep around you, let them be the people that are positive and influence you positively. So take care of yourself, love yourself. And even if you're in a position where you realize that you are, you could be depressed, or someone who is depressed, we've been told on the right way, on the right channels on getting helped. So don't just stay there and wait for things to get to us. Life is beautiful. Life is so beautiful. So love yourself and allow life also to happen to you in this beautiful way. So don't allow yourself or your loved ones to be depressed. So I hope this conversation can continue. Should you have any questions, let the conversation continue on our social media handles at GBS TV Africa, and also on our SMS line 21144. So I've been your host, Kate Waliaro, and until next time, bye-bye.